Welcome back to my channel. Hoyo dropped the 4 stars and the weapon banner for the Neuvillette and Kazuha rerun banners, so let's talk about it. Starting off with the 4 stars Xingqiu rerun. Woo, yeah, yippee, woo! This guy is broken, and he has a cool skin now. If you don't already know, Xingqiu is always a good character to have. He provides damage, very consistent off-field hydro application, damage reduction, and even some healing. Since Dendro, he's probably the best 4-star character in the game. Yes, he beats Bennett because Dendro just has a lot of hydro-related reactions. Some of the strongest teams in the game rely on having hydro application, like National, any of the Bloom variants, and Freeze. And Xingqiu is a solid choice for that hydro slot in all those teams. Like he will be more than enough for any of those teams. His constellations are also very, very good. C2 is like, I think, a really big one. It gives you more uptime on his hydro application, and it provides hydro res shred, which will be good for any of your other hydro teammates. And it also just buffs himself if you're using him as a solo hydro. Like this hydro shred applies to himself too, you know. So for someone who has as much damage as he does, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. After C2, probably C6 would be the next best thing. Like, I think this is nice too, but it's a scaling damage. But I think C2 and C6 are the biggest ones, because C6, it gives you more hydro application because it's more rain swords. So it's an increase also in personal damage because, again, more rain swords. And his energy requirement is reduced significantly. Like, it's a lot. Like, maybe 20-25% energy recharge just from one constellation. Very solid unit. Now, Barbara is another featured character on the banner. You can't get the skin anymore. I'm sorry for the new players. You get her for free though. Like her, for free. So she isn't really a desired character. But she does have some decent teams. She does have some decent applications. If you don't have any of the 5-star hydro units, so like Child, Neuvillette, who's, you know, she's on his banner, Ayato, or any of the other 5-star, like just 5-star hydro units in general, Yelan, Farina, Mona, and Xingqiu is on the other team, Barbara is a solid choice for reactions like Burgeon and Hyper Bloom. She's not enough for stuff like National, but you could use Xingqiu for that. But for example, like something like Nilou Bloom, she's actually really good because she's a healer. And if you're playing Nilou, you need a healer. So no Kokomi, just use Barbara. Other than that, she isn't really, you know, that great. There isn't much to her character aside from being, you know, a catalyst user. So that means can hold TTDS. You can provide a little more utility for your team because it's a pretty big attack buff. And you can also use stuff like Prototype Amber for more healing, but she doesn't need this. If you're using Barbara and you're building her correctly, like for healing, you don't need Prototype Amber for the extra healing. I think you'd much rather have the TTDS attack buff. For her constellations, there aren't that many good ones. Like C2 maybe is good if you're using her as a secondary hydro or as a healer for a hydro on fielder, then this is fine. But other than that, like C6 is, I guess, the biggest one, which doesn't really do much outside of the overworld because this revive only works every 15 minutes anyway. And yeah, if you die in Abyss, just restart. Tankfei is the last one, and she's designed as a Pyro Catalyst carry. I actually, fun fact, when Tankfei first released, I did want to build her as like a hyper carry because I didn't have Pyro characters. Yeah, I wanted to build her as a carry. Didn't get constellation, so I like gave up. But now I have C6 now, but like, yeah. As of now, she is designed as a hyper carry, you know, for Vaporize, or maybe with Chevreuse now you can play her with Fischl to play like an overload team. But Tankfei doesn't really see too much play as an on-fielder anymore, and that's because of her constellations. None of them are that, like, these are all damage focused until you get to the C4, and this is why Tankfei is played these days as a shielder. Tankfei, C4 allows her to provide a shield after her burst, and the shield's actually pretty good. Other than that, you know, she's a Pyro character for Pyro Resonance, and she's a Catalyst user, so she can run, again, TTDS or Prototype Amber. And if you run Prototype Amber with her E4 as Tankfei, you build her full HP. She can give your team healing and shielding at the same time. So like, you know, healing, shielding, one slot, pretty good. Or you could also go run her Tankfei with Thrilling Tales, which will be a little harder because you don't have the energy from Prototype, but this would make her sort of like a shielder and a buffer for your on-fielder. So yeah, not the craziest banner 4-star wise, but you know, the 5 stars are pretty good. The 5 stars are really good. Neuvillette is busted. This guy, I think it's safe to say that he's probably the best DPS in the game at C0. I have C0. I'm not gonna pull for C1. You don't need it. C1, while it is pretty good, you don't need it for him to function. He's perfectly fine. I've been using this guy with Prototype Amber and his clears are insanely competitive to the other teams I have available. Like, he is that good. I didn't think that they would do this to a character. I don't know how he was released like this, but he's just good. Like, if you're looking for a on-field hydro carry, just pull for him. Like, this is coming from a child main, dude. Like, he power crept Ayato. He can play in most of Child's teams, honestly. He can even play National. He's not as good at enabling Xiangling, but he does really good personal damage. And he's very capable of filling the on-field hydro role. Like, he's just solid. Just pull for him if you want to. If you're saving for Arlecchino like me, then skip if you want. But, like, he's nice. And you can do the spin to win in Abyss. So, for Kazuha, he's kind of an older character at this point, but he's also a really good pickup still. He's one of the best. He's Animo, so that means he can use VV, which is one of the best sets in the game. He provides an elemental damage boost from his talent, his A4. This talent basically gives your units a second elemental damage goblet. So for example, if I'm using him in National with Child and Xiangling are both just getting like what, 40% more hydro damage and pyro damage. It's really good. And he's probably the easiest to use grouper in the game. I don't want to say best grouper in the game, but he's the best grouper in the game. Kazuha, solid, always good to pull. If you still don't have him, you should pull for him. For the weapon banner, both the Tome and the Freedom Sword are pretty nice, but unnecessary. Freedom Sword is an EM stat stick, and it provides a buff to the rest of the party. Normal, charge, and plunging attack damage, and as well as a Noblesse buff. It's solid, but I think weapons like the Siphos Moonlight existing kinda power creeps it, in my opinion, because you know, if you're lucky enough to get it before hitting a 5-star, it's a 4-star. And I think it can be better than Freedom Sword in some teams that don't necessarily care about the buffs that Freedom Sword provides. Other than Siphos, you also have Favj and Zac, which are just like good options on Kazuha. Just like, yeah, he can do, like, he's really such a good unit on his own that I don't think he needs like Freedom Sword to function at all. He's just, yeah. As for Tome, it's a solid DPS increase. Can't lie, very good. In most cases, can be a really, really good weapon to pick up. If you want a main Neuvillette, I think you should get it. I don't have it, but I think you should if you want it. For the 4-stars, Fischl's Bow isn't that good, but it gets bonus points for aesthetics. And Favonius Lance is probably the only valuable weapon on this banner because, you know, Favonius, it just gives energy to your team. Again, it's a weapon banner, so spend your primos wisely. And I wouldn't recommend pulling unless you have enough to guarantee the weapon. So that means 3 pitties. Not 2 pit, 3. 3 pit. If you don't have enough for 3, don't do it because you might regret it. So yeah, those are all my thoughts for these banners. Oh wait, I have to shill. Follow on Twitch. I'm not gonna stream this weekend. This is recorded like 2 days before it's uploaded, but yeah, next week.